Good morning, everyone. Hello, hello. I hope you're all well. Do say hello if you can see us. Let's stop sharing this screen. There we go. Doesn't even look like me anymore. I've had that many hair color changes since that picture was taken. Morning, Jess. You all right?
Yes, how are you?
Good, all good, all
Good.
good. Looking forward to this discussion this morning because obviously we're seeing such a rise in the use of AI everywhere, not just in Send, but I think we're really sent into this sort of false sense of security with it. I think we place a little bit too much trust in it. So we'll cover quite a lot this morning. So if you're watching us, please do say hello. We'll keep an eye on the comments and let us know where you're watching from as well, because it always intrigues us because sometimes people are watching from overseas, which I think is just amazing. But also, sometimes people are very close, and then we can direct them to our in-person stuff as well as our online stuff. So do say hello if you're watching. We're live across Facebook and YouTube this morning, and we'll be keeping an eye on the comments on both platforms. So do let us know where you're watching from. Say hello. And we will always say hello back because we don't bite. We're very kind. If you see me looking to the side, I'm just looking at the comments. Um, so I'm Chrissa, if you didn't already know. I'm the founder of Sunshine Support, and I've got a very special guest this morning. I've got Jess Douglas here. Jess runs our pre-litigation team here at Sunshine Support. Morning, Jess. How are you?
Good, good. I'm really excited for this topic today. It's such a new sort of thing to discuss, isn't it? It's very
Yeah.
different.
It is different because
Yeah.
normally we're talking about EHCPs and IDPs and appeals and tribunals and judicial review and PAPs, but this is taking it a sort of step backwards a
Yeah.
little bit and looking at the administration of it all. So I think it's going to be really interesting, but regardless really of wherever a send parent is in their journey, whether they haven't started anything yet or whether they are very seasoned like me, because even I still have a need to produce emails and letters and, whatever. So I think that, diving into this morning is going to be really, really interesting. So for those who are watching and you have no idea what we're talking about, we're going to be talking today about the use of AI and ChatGPT. So AI meaning artificial intelligence in the world of send, because we're seeing it crop up a lot and it can be really useful. So today we're going to have a balanced discussion, but we're also going to warn you of any tricky challenges as well. We've noticed here that parents are using it to help, write letters, prepare appeals, lodge appeals. They're using it to understand the law. And, on the surface, it really sounds amazing, like having a friend in your computer that can give you all these answers, free tools and instant help and that sort of thing. But the question we're asking today is how safe is it to use? Um, and could it actually be putting your case at risk if you rely on it a bit too much, which is obviously the difficulty. So let me just see if we've got any comments yet. I don't know whether mine is working and whether it's just not picking up the comments. So we'll come, because sometimes it does that. We'll come back to comments in a second because I'm not actually reporting any or seeing any at the moment. So Jess, tell us a little bit, first of all, before we get into the nitty-gritty of this subject, so we understand your role at Sunshine. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you do and your background? Because you're one of our legally based consultants, aren't you?
Yeah, so I studied law at university and obtained my law degree. And then I went straight into working in a law firm and I was a paralegal in the education law sector for a number of years. I've delved into a couple of other sort of areas, but then sort of found my way back to education when I joined Sunshine. And when I started Sunshine, I was building up the department that was responsible for sending pre-action protocol letters, and I was a one-man band for quite some time. But now we've started our fantastic pre-litigation team, and we have incredible members who are so knowledgeable of the law. It's amazing. And alongside our tribunal work and drafting ECNAs and things like that, we are responsible for sending pre-action protocol letters to local authorities, threatening them with judicial reviews. and undertaking that more legal work. But then we do pass cases on to solicitors if needs be for a judicial review.
It doesn't tend to get to that very often, does it? Because
No,
the
no,
pre-action letter tends to give them a big sort of kick up the bum,
yeah,
and they realize that the parent is really serious and they understand. When they realize, oh God, it's one of those parents, they know their rights, they've got sunshine on their case, then they tend to just do the right thing and do what
yeah,
they're
they're
meant to
very
do.
successful at pre-action protocol letters. And to write a letter and understand what you're writing really does add weight to what you're doing, and it does demonstrate that to the local authority. And I think that's the most important thing. If you know what you're writing and it looks very formal and legal, it does make them sit up and listen and prevent any sort of further delays, and interim education is implemented and things like that. So they are brilliant letters.
They really are. And I think, it's a testament to all the years you've spent in education law as a fee earner at a law firm. And the fact that you're so invested in it as a
Yeah,
person as well, because you've got lived experience as well.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And whilst thankfully I've never had to send a pre-action protocol letter for my child, you know, having that knowledge really is helpful, but it's also brilliant within my role to be able to empower those parents and help them understand that where they may not have realised there was an issue, there is actually an issue, but we can fix it. And it's
Yeah.
very simple to fix it rather than, sending an email a day and getting stressed and even more overwhelmed than you already are. We do have a solution.
Yes. Yeah. And I think, I remember going through my first case almost 10 years ago now, and we ended up sending 7 pre-action
Yeah,
letters through our solicitor. And every single one of them, apart from the last one, got exactly what we should have had, or what the law was saying we should have
yeah,
had. The last one was one they just never responded to. So we did actually go all the way to the High Court and we won. But it's incredibly stressful. And I must say that I fumbled around in the dark for quite a while before finding a solicitor. And it wasn't until after my case that I realised I didn't actually ever need a solicitor, apart from the High Court bit. But that particular solicitor wasn't a specialist or expert in that anyway.
yeah,
But I actually didn't need a solicitor for all the work, and so I could have saved myself a fortune.
yeah,
So we've got a comment on Facebook from Hayley. She worries about ChatGPT because of the awful stories in the media about things like children taking their own life as a result of listening to advice from it. Oh yes, I mean that is. Whew, I'm not sure that we're going to be covering that sort of stuff today. It was more to do with your send case, but absolutely, you're going to pick up some nuggets of information from us today, which will help us to inform you. That's what we're here for today, really, isn't it? To sort of help you to self-advocate with information that we're going to be sharing. And so, Jess, you've seen a big rise in send parents using ChatGPT for their cases, haven't you? What sort of
yeah.
things are they looking for, sort of using it for?
So it can range massively. I've had a few parents who've used it just to try and sort of understand the law in the
Yeah,
sense of, you know, the actual statutes. But then
yeah.
I've also had clients who've used it for actually drafting very complex legal documents. And whilst you may think that that's a really easy route to use
Mm,
ChatGPT for sort of, those things, it doesn't understand to the level that you need it to. And I think
yeah.
that's the problem at the moment. Whilst AI is fantastic, it is in its very early years in terms of its knowledge and its understanding, and it doesn't have context for anything. And
Yeah.
a lot of what we do is context based, it's very individualized. So it looks great, but there are issues there, definitely.
So, I've come across it looking at the team, and we've got a real close net sort of knit team
Yeah.
here at Sunshine. Even though a lot, sort of half of us are based at the office, half of us are based at home around the country, and but we share a lot, we communicate a lot, don't we? And I've noticed that the team have grown quite concerned about the levels of letters,
Yeah,
assessment requests, lodging appeals through the relevant forms, to the tribunal, sort of putting together complaints. Some of them, you can see that there's structure there, which is useful,
yeah,
but the level of inaccuracies is quite, well, it's really concerning, isn't it? Because we've then cast our eye over them and gone,
yeah.
ah, we might have an issue, or we will have an issue with the following. And then it's sort of us versus AI,
Yeah.
which is really frustrating for us as consultants, given, I mean, like you said, you've got so many years of experience. And between us all in the team, I mean, you look at all the experience, it's hundreds and hundreds of years
Oh,
of experience.
definitely.
Sorry, it makes us sound
No,
really old,
it does.
but but there are 23 of us here. So, you look at, how many hundreds of years experience we've got, and it's us versus this brand new piece of
Yeah.
software that's grabbing information from correct sources, incorrect sources, and also, we'll come on to this in a bit, sources that don't even exist. So like you said, it can sound really professional and it can look brilliantly
Oh,
sort of,
yeah.
oh my God, so impressive. But it does lack that nuanced reasoning that a solicitor or a legal advocate or a human who
Yeah.
has the correct knowledge would have. And that sort of reading between the lines, because sometimes you can get a case and it's not so black and white, and you can pull out bits from different parts of the case to make a really strong
Yeah.
argument.
Absolutely.
And AI can't do that because it doesn't really know what it's looking at. It's not a human. It's not got that sort of executive functionality to be able to look at all those different layers of stuff. Um, I noticed as well that back in the summer, the High Court told barristers and solicitors to stop using AI because it was actually citing fake case law. So like that's mad. So it's
I
just
know.
pulling stuff out. So, it's up to us as the humans to say, can you give me the information where, the site where you have found that case law? Jess, just talk us through in layman terms, what is case law?
So, case law is when you have two or more parties who are in dispute and have gone to court. And this is when a judge will determine over the matter. So, that is case law, which is very different to statute, which has gone through Parliament in the sense of it is a bill that goes to the House of Lords and Commons and then is given royal assent. They are two
Yes.
very different things, but case law does still hold weight and
Mhm.
does have sort of elements that are used as legal arguments in
Yeah.
matters moving forward. But case law is dealt with by the judicial system,
Yeah.
whereas statutes are dealt with parliamentary.
And at the moment, I'm in the middle of a legal case myself, and we have the top barrister in this particular area of law. And I feel very fortunate that most of the case law that she's going to be referring to is hers. So she actually created it because she's that good. But my case that I'm dealing with is not an education case. It's actually something separate, but it's absolutely brilliant when it's great that you can have a barrister that's actually created the case law for herself. But what we're finding, and this is, by all means, Google this, guys, you can see it online. Cases are being brought to a court. And how they've rumbled them is when they've gone to look at the case law, because it sounded quite unusual, particularly when you've got a really experienced judge in that area of law, and they're looking, going, I've never heard of this
Yeah.
case law. And when they search for it, it doesn't exist. So chat is almost designed to be the most enabling software. It will tell you you're right. So you have to ask it to tell you that you're wrong or to pick fault. So if you are doing this sort of thing, and again, it is dodgy because you're asking a piece of software to try and do the work of a human that actually has years of experience. But essentially, if you do ask it to do this, then it's essential that you question it and say, where is the case law? Where can I find it? And then go and look at it. Make sure it's on a reputable website, that it's actually, what website would be reputable?
So I have always used LexisNexis or Westlaw primarily. But you do find quite a lot of the time that cases are on sort of the judiciary website,
Yeah,
because LexisNexis and Westlaw tend to need a subscription most commonly. So the judiciary website's always really handy.
yeah,
But you can find quite easily online whether a case is actually real or not. Usually,
yeah,
when you're looking at the websites that are fictional,
yes.
it's generally pretty clear very quickly. But AI won't know that
No.
because AI is just pulling information. They're not looking at that context around that information.
Absolutely. And like you said, context is king here because
Massive.
AI will just predict what might sound right,
Yeah.
but what it confuses is law and policy because it's just
Yeah.
dragging information in. So, I mean, this is something that we talk about a lot. The law will always trump policy. When you have a local authority who says things like, we've done our quota of EHCPs for this month, there is no law that says that. So that might be their policy, but it's actually an unlawful policy. But parents believe it because they're
Yeah.
being told it by somebody with authority. So, but of course, if parents believe it, guess what? Chat will believe it because it will look on the internet and just go, okay, that's from a government website, i.e., a council, and it's just dragging information and it might be unlawful. So it can't tell the difference between the two, can it?
No, never. And for parents who are obviously so overwhelmed by being in this process alongside, taking care of their send child,
Yeah.
having that ease of a machine doing the work for you, you are going to place trust in that system and think, oh, amazing, they've cited a case.
Yes.
So you automatically do believe that that case must be real because why
Yeah.
wouldn't it be?
Yeah.
But you do have to check because AI is in its infancy, it doesn't understand. And the last thing you want to do is put your case at risk, put your child's education in a more challenging situation.
Absolutely. Well, it removes your credibility as well because
Yeah.
you look really, really daft. You look really daft. And it's hard enough trying to represent yourself. I mean, I've been in 3 tribunals, send tribunals for my children, and I had a representative, but my goodness, it was stressful.
Yeah.
And I had a fantastic panel, that I paid to be there, speech and language, ed psych, clinical psych, that sort of stuff, and my solicitor representative. And even with all of that sort of padding around me, it was such an attack on me. I definitely felt that. So you don't want to invite that attack, is what I'm saying. I mean, I felt attacked with all these reputable people using their knowledge and experience and expertise. If you're going in and you're doing self-representation, which is absolutely fine because it's meant to be a parent-friendly system, what you don't want is to, on top of that feeling of feeling like you're being attacked, is to actually invite it by giving incorrect information. And something else I've noticed as well is that it refers to not just made up case law, but it can also get confused by dates. So it can cite really old case law or legislation or old policies because it can't seem to discriminate in that way. So you might think that you've got the most updated piece of law or legislation or case law, but it's not.
No, and you can find sometimes, particularly with case law, more so over statute, is that, for example, a case that might have been heard in 1993, and there was a brilliant argument that was made, and as a result of that, you've got a legal sort of premise to follow. ChatGPT won't realize that in 2013, a case with the opposite argument was heard, and that actually overturned the argument in the previous case. So you're citing a case that has potentially been overturned, and therefore your argument falls away automatically.
Yeah. And so it's scary because
It is.
you're putting yourself into this new world that you don't fully understand. And I've noticed that um, one of the growing trends in the recruitment world, because of course I'm an ex-recruiter, so I do keep my eye on the recruitment world. One of the growing trends is that now there are jobs for prompt writers because it is a skilled job. to actually provide a prompt to chat. Because you want it to sound human, you want the outcome to be accurate. And again, we don't have the traditional average person doesn't have the prompt writer skill set. So, that's quite worrying. One of the other big worries for me is safeguarding.
Huge.
Now, one of the things that we can all probably agree on as send parents, or as parents, is our children are very, very vulnerable. And safeguarding their information is of utmost importance. It is the most important thing. We want to safeguard them. We want to protect them. But if we're then putting their very sort of very, very important information, very personal information, into a system that feeds into a bank of information. Remember, this information then goes into the bank that then other information is pulled from. It sort of begs the question. You're entering your personal data. You don't know where it's stored. You don't know who can access it. You don't know how it's being used again. So there's a real worry there, isn't there, about safeguarding?
Absolutely huge. And this is something I've primarily worried about when looking at AI and ChatGPT, because we can receive a ChatGPT letter and we can fix that if
Yeah,
we look at it and go, that's not up to standard.
yeah,
We can fix that. We can't fix the safeguarding risk.
yeah,
If a child's information is out there,
yeah.
it's so dangerous because you don't know where that's going to get distributed
No.
and you don't know how it's going to be distributed.
Because we're not reading the T's and C's. Nobody is reading, they're just going, oh, chat, I've heard about this. Yeah, I'll download it on my phone or, have a go on my computer. Nobody's actually looking for, the GDPR
No.
privacy terms or anything like that. Um, and so there are questions over that. Have you ever received, Jess? You just said about, we can fix letters that are written in ChatGPT, but we
Yeah.
can't really fix the problems that go on outside of that remit, but with regards to information sharing. But have you ever received any work from a parent where they said, oh, I've used chat to do this, where you thought, oh, that's excellent, I don't need to do anything to it?
So I have received documents from clients, but no, I've never looked at it and gone, yeah, that's up to a standard that I would be happy to send out. Now I'm very particular with how things are written, the legal person in me,
Yeah,
but there was never any consideration given within the work I've received to cross-referencing documents, to the individual child, to the emotion surrounding the situation. AI is there to pull that information and they don't look at what's already there, what needs to go in, why does it need to go in?
yeah,
Also looking at there is a child at the center of this and this
yeah,
is emotional, and if it's coming from a parent, it being an emotionless document would automatically trigger that sort of mindset of, well, why isn't it emotional? Who's written this?
yeah.
There's always that additional layer.
It's hard. It's hard to strike a balance because we're not afforded the emotion anyway, are we, as parents? You sort
No.
of say, I'm very upset about this. It is like, oh God, they're one of those parents. They're just getting upset about everything. But at the same time, you don't want to appear cold. I remember through my case, one of my children is autistic with ADHD and the PDA profile. Really, really tricky to get help for this particular child of mine because she was a beautiful masker. Um, and what we found was at one point there was a reference to the old 1950s phrase, refrigerator mother. So basically, if the mother is cold, then the child will present as autistic, because this was very much a theory back in the 50s.
Yeah.
It's not now, and thankfully we've forgotten about that phrase, although it's come up a little bit after paracetamol gate a few weeks ago. But we've got to tread that fine line between seeming cold. By the way, I don't agree with any of that. I'm saying that professionals can sometimes be very quick to accuse. So we've always got to tread that fine line between being factual and having enough emotion in it so that we understand how it's affecting the
Yeah.
child and affecting the family. And it's very important as well that, you know, we share just how much we blooming love our kids and that
Yeah.
we want to get it right for them. So looking at chat then, obviously we've looked at some of the risks. It can be helpful, can't it? I mean, what are the sort of ways do you think it could be helpful, Jess?
So I think when trying to understand statute for parents, that can be really helpful in the sense of, you know, you could read a statute as a parent or somebody who's not trained in this area, and it just looked like legal jargon. And it does, and it can be daunting. But ChatGPT can summarize that law for you and help you to understand that. It can also be quite helpful in terms of maybe understanding more so tribunal process. So, for example, if you need to submit a request for change, you can
Yeah,
ask ChatGPT, okay, what steps do I need to take? Or how do I need to fill this form in? The simple things, the very, very basic things that, in all honesty, is more like a yes no answer,
yeah,
not needing context, not needing any form of reports or emotion, just understanding how do I fill in these boxes.
yeah.
I think that would absolutely be my limit with ChatGPT, just
Mm.
because that doesn't require any sort of wider world knowledge and understanding.
Yeah, I agree. So it's quite good at organizing thoughts, isn't it? So
Yeah,
of course, if you're a parent and you're thinking, right, my child is presenting in this way, I know that I need some sort of support, but can you give me 5 steps of what I
yeah,
need to do? So then it's organizing that structure of, how to get help, but it's not doing it for you. And I think that's we've got to
exactly.
sort of we need to understand that it's a tool and not a solution.
Yeah.
And I think that is the big sort of
And it's
takeaway for
only
me.
ever going off the information you provide to it. And that's
Yeah,
the really important thing to bear in mind, that, like you were saying, people are hiring prompt writers now
yeah,
because ChatGPT only understands what it is given. So
yeah.
unless you're very clear in what you're saying, it's not going to know what it needs to do and will just throw anything at you.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think it can be also quite helpful in understanding terminology.
Yeah.
So I've had a few parents sort of say to me, "Oh, Chrissa, you mentioned executive function in one of your videos." So I put it into chat and it gave me a breakdown. Again, sometimes, because I've tested it, sometimes it's accurate, sometimes it is not accurate. And I don't know. We've got to remember that there are sites out there that are incorrect. You know, we've got that media frenzy over send over the paracetamol and autism thing. I've also heard that Peppa Pig watching Peppa Pig causes autism. I mean, I don't know what happened before Peppa Pig. Maybe there was somebody before her that was causing it. But you sort of think to yourself, that information is out there.
Yeah.
And that doesn't know what is fake and what isn't. So it's going to pull this information in. And you could be mortified by what you read because you're like, I didn't think that was a thing. No, it's not. But it's pulling it in from these different sources. So we've got to be really, really careful. Again, asking it where it found the information. More often than not, it does cite it now. But
Yeah.
asking it, if it doesn't cite it, ask it, where have you found that information? Link me to the website, because we've seen the press and we've also heard the horror stories whereby when people have asked us, where have you found that piece of case law, it said it didn't exist. I just thought it sounded like something that would back up your case. So it it's a bit scary, really, that it has so much thought without any context.
Yeah.
And I think Another way I think that people could use it is not by necessarily drafting a letter, but asking it to give you a structure of how a letter should be written. So, I'm going to write an official complaint to a local authority. How should I structure the letter? And then you put the information into the letter, not asking chat to put the information into the letter.
Yeah, because I think
Um,
structure is something that, when you're overly emotional, when you're stressed and you just want to get everything out, you
yes,
don't think about how do I paragraph this? Do I need
yes,
to, like we learned in school, point, evidence, explanation? You don't
yes,
think about that. But if chat can give you those basics, it will help sort of organize your thoughts. Like you said previously, it's brilliant for doing that.
yeah,
But
absolutely.
reliance on it to write your letter, it's far too young, and it's pulling information that it shouldn't be.
Yeah, and it's not human. It
No.
will never replace the human touch. As amazing as it can be, it will never replace the human touch. Um, and I think that it's really important, like I said, that people understand it's a tool and not a solution. I think your empathy as a parent, as a teacher, as a professional, whoever you are watching, your empathy and lived experience and your voice matters the most.
Yeah.
And I think, professional consultants, legal advisors, they bring nuance and they bring strategy. And I don't think the chat, well, I know it cannot provide strategy in the way that you want it to because it can't pick up on all the nuances. It's quite scary, really, that it does make up an awful lot. And also the relationships, a lot of the work that we do here in Send, both as parents, as professionals, but also as those sort of mediators in the middle, which is what we tend to do, that can't be replaced by AI because it's all based on relationship. So we've got to form relationships. And I think that, that's at the core, that connection is at the core of how we bring about magic for the kids. Let's not lose sight of what we're all aiming to do here, which is, provide an education, health and care that is suitable, which is the key word, suitable for our children to create long lasting, fantastic outcomes. That's essentially what we're aiming to achieve. So don't put the hands of your child into a piece of software that's only been going for a few years, or any software. Like, don't put your child into the hands of software. Um, so Jess, in terms of top tips, then I'm guessing, with regards to safeguarding, what would you suggest in terms of a top tip for anybody watching?
Never submit anything personal. Never submit a report. Never submit an EHCP. Do not give personal and private information to a system that then allocates it to a bank and distributes it who knows where,
Yeah.
because that is your child, the most precious thing in the world, and not knowing where their information goes is a huge worry.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and I think, if you're not willing for that to appear somewhere online, don't submit it.
Yeah.
Don't put it into the software. Um, and then moving on then to sort of, legal advice. What would your top tip be if a parent is seeking legal advice from chat?
I think whenever seeking advice from chat about law, case law, statute, policy, whatever that is, go away and look it up.
Yeah,
Actually check what it is saying. Because if you rely on something and it's wrong, the strength of your case starts to very quickly dwindle. And if you're in front of a panel and a local authority representative and that gets pulled apart, you're placing all of that time and all of that work that you've done at risk because you relied on a system and
yeah,
didn't then check it.
yeah. And I think it's important, isn't it? Don't rely on it as that legal solution, but
Yeah.
do by all means rely on it to structure things, to draft ideas, to give you next steps, but not to do the work.
No, definitely not.
And I think that, and by all means, we're here, remember, if you want to check any information with us, if you're a member of our Sunshine Academy, we've got a community behind the scenes there. So our Sunshine Academy is not just webinars. A lot of people think it's just where our old webinars go to sort of, rest. It's not. That's a very small part of it. The biggest part, I think, anyway, where I think people get the most benefit is that we've got a community on there. It's like a private, very, very private Facebook page. So there's an app on your phone, you can log in and then you can submit questions and they come through to us as a team. So all those hundreds of years of experience that I just boasted earlier are all in this app. So you get to submit your questions and we'll answer you. And it's just brilliant. So if you ever get, I'm trying to develop a complaint letter and I need some case law or I need a bit of information for the, just come to the Sunshine Academy because that is where you'll get all the information. And there's bound to be a course on it anyway. And I'm not on about webinars. We have got actual courses on there as well. So I'm going to come to, we've actually got an Ask Me Anything, an Ask the Expert coming up Thursday this week. Kaylee is going to be doing an hour-long face-to-face online not legal, advice clinic. So anything relating to SEND, if any of the parents here today want to have that face-to-face with one of us, Kaylee is providing that at 7 o'clock on Thursday this week. I think it's the Thursday, 23rd. I'm sure it's the 23rd. I'm sure that the Facebook and YouTube elves, I think it is, it's the 23rd. But by all means, come along to that because I think that's one of the most valuable things because you can log in on Zoom and be face to face with us and we limit it. So there's not that many people in the room. And I was the host of the last one and Rachel was doing all the questions, answering the questions. And we had, I think it was 3 families in there. And so they got a whole hour of just chatting to us and us providing advice. It was really wholesome. It's really nice to spend that time. So by all means, sign up to the Sunshine Academy, guys. If you need the link, just comment Sunshine Academy and we'll get you the link. So I've got loads of comments come through. There was definitely a bit of a delay. Andrea on Facebook says, my draft EHCP looked like it had been written with the aid of ChatGPT. Now, this is what I was going to mention earlier, and my ADHD brain went in a different direction. There are always clear telltale signs. Personally, I would always trust a professional like yourselves over any tech. Thank you, Andrea. That's really, really kind. But I think it does highlight as well that parents can be checking. They can actually use chat to check and question what a local authority is talking about. We can usually spot them. I mean, this is an age-old problem, really, because I remember my first child's EHCP about 10 years ago, and what was in that was very off the shelf, put it that way. And it said, now my child was an absolute academic, so incredibly intelligent, forecast level 9s across the board at her GCSEs. So intelligent, it was dangerous, way quicker than I was. And what they said was in her EHCP, the first draft, was she needs a swing in her mainstream classroom. Okay, she was in senior school. She needs a ball pit in every classroom. She needs a chew toy. And there was something else. And she looked at it and she was about 12, I think, at the time, or 13, very, very grown up, though, in terms of her approach. She thought of herself as very mature, which is very common for our autistic girls. And I said to her, what are your thoughts? She had a lot of expletives, but one of them was, I'm not a dog. Why do I need a chew toy? So I went back to the local authority and said, can I ask for your reasoning behind this provision? And they said, that's what all the kids need when they've got that presentation. And so it is an age-old problem. It's just they weren't relying on technology before. They were just going, oh, yeah, that one looks about right. We'll copy and paste it. So always, 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 always check your EHCPs. We've always got loads of resources on our Facebook page as well. We're going to be sharing quite a lot in the coming weeks on EHCPs. And we've got an EHCP webinar. If you're looking to apply for one, or you're going through the process and you need to better understand the process, we've got a brilliant webinar coming up on the 30th. It's just a 2-hour evening webinar. Ticket holders will receive the recording as well. And we're going to be talking about all the bits of law that you actually need. So forget AI. This is us as humans, and we see amazing results here, and we're sharing our expertise and knowledge. So if you'd like the link to the EHCP webinar, just comment EHCP and we'll send you the link. Emily has just asked ChatGPT for an official complaint for lack of communication and not progressing for mediation. And so I think that actually, Ellie, what you could be doing there is asking Chat for a structure.
Yeah.
So don't put your information in, ask for a structure. How should I structure a complaint? Kirsty on Facebook says, AI told me that local authorities produce legally compliant EHCPs. When I asked, so Kirsty says, and when I asked why it had drawn that conclusion, its rationale was basked on the number of EHCPs versus the number of tribunals. See, that doesn't even make sense, does it?
No.
Goodness me. Katie on Facebook says, academia has very strict rules around AI. All of those professionals will know the importance of evidence-based research that they have sourced. This is a wider societal issue that needs to be gripped. Absolutely. But then again, Katie, we're coming back to some of the comments here where, some of the people that we're dealing with in the local authorities do have degrees and are academics. And so they are, because of the lack of time, I think this is lack of time sometimes rather than lack of education, they are just leaning towards chat to go, if I can generate that prompt now, and then that will just make my life so much quicker. Because we've got a podcast, is our highest watched podcast actually, with our fabulous Jess Tomzett, who works here as a SEND consultant. And Jess is an ex-local authority worker, and she talks quite candidly and very, very honestly about the enormous amounts of pressure placed on caseworkers at the local authority. And they have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of cases on their caseload, which, yes, the majority might not need an awful lot of work. But when it comes to things like annual reviews, they all seem to happen at the same time because phase transfers typically happen in the autumn, and then you've got the 12-month period. So this time of year is really busy for annual reviews. And how on earth are those local authority workers meant to attend them all and make the notes? So AI is playing a lot of a massive job here in trying to cut down time when inevitably it's creating more problems later on. Natalie makes a good point. She says, I wonder if chat is finding cases from TV programs, because how many times have you watched a TV program and gone, that's not how it works. That's not right.
Quite a lot. But that is a very strong possibility. It could be pulling things from novels, from films. We just don't know. We don't know what the reach is of what it's actually trying to obtain information from. So that could be a very good explanation for fictional cases in some circumstances.
Yeah, like quoting Ali McBeal or something. Gabby on YouTube says, good morning. AI loves making up a legal reference. You need to know your case law. So again, going back, quiz AI. Where are you finding this information? Give me the link. And then you don't just click on the link, go and look at it yourself. Go separately, open up a new window and use Google to search for specific types of case law. Natalie on Facebook says, would it be helpful for getting my child into the secondary school I want, as I feel he would only cope in one in our area. My son is waiting for a diagnosis and doesn't have an EHCP yet. Chat is not going to help you with the school placement, but an EHCP will. So Natalie, absolutely come along to that EHCP webinar that we've got coming up in a couple of weeks on the 30th. In fact, it's less than a couple of weeks, because that will tell you for the case of or for the sake of coming along to a 2-hour webinar And we send out slides as well that gives you all the information you need for that process. You're then relying on humans. If we've got it wrong, you can come back on us, but we won't get it wrong because we know what we're doing. So just come to that, Natalie. That is what's going to help secure your child's school. And actually, at this point right now, you don't need a diagnosis. Yes, some schools will say, you know, that they need a specific diagnosis in order to be accepted in, because they could be autism-based schools or DLD-based schools or whatever. However, the needs assessment should pull out all the things you need, and then be able to provide a provision at the end. So, you know, when you look at how an EHC needs assessment process should work, it's quite beautiful. And the law doesn't need to change, does it, Jess?
No,
We just
absolutely
need
not.
local authorities to adhere to it. Claire says AI is marking children's work instead of teachers. My goodness, I don't even know. I don't even know. How do we even delve into that? Is that like a software? Because chat wouldn't be able to do that, I don't think. But
No, I can't
it,
imagine chat would figure that out.
no, but it would be interesting to know. But I suppose that I mean, in this case, AI has been around for a while because you can actually put a quiz together online on a piece of software, tell it what the right answers are, and of course, then the child will know instantaneously whether they've passed or failed because it will meet the criteria of what's wrong or what's right. So it's that what I'm talking about is not necessarily AI, but a well workflowed put together piece of software. Don't even know if any of that terminology is correct. I'm not an IT person, but it would be interesting to know a little bit more about that, because of course schools are training children now on how to spot AI, which I think is very, very important. And
Yeah,
teachers are using software to pick up whether pieces of work are being done with AI. Gabby on YouTube says, I had a school document come in this week, which has been run through chat. It was obvious. It was really obvious. Unfortunately, it quoted the send code of practice incorrectly, and we had to put it right. So again, going back to that, academics don't tend to use chat. This has come from a school. So Gabby's actually, I'm guessing it's our Gabby. Gabby is one of our managers here and an ex-Senko, and she used to run a language provision. So she understands the pressures on schools. But it is really sad that now her client has had to instruct her to correct this piece of work from the school because it's incorrectly quoted the
on
send
something as
code of practice.
fundamental as well as the send code of practice. That's one of the biggest things underpinning
Yes.
the send world.
Yeah. And it's clear. The
Yeah,
website, you can find the information. It's
yeah.
very, very clear. So that's really alarming. So I think that, you know, to summarize, I think we've got some more comments coming through, but until it actually comes through. To summarize, I think that, you know, this is a very, very important topic. And I think that AI is here to stay. We're not going to get rid of it. But when it comes to something as critical as your child's education and legal rights, we need to be very careful. Let's not cut corners. We need to get the facts, you know, and like I said, come to our webinars. That's what we're here for. And I must say that our Sunshine Academy, that is where you'll get an abundance of facts because there are so many resources on there. Not forgetting, of course, all the home ed material that we've got on there. So if you've got a child who's out of school, we've even got next month, we've got a Spanish course being launched on there. So who needs Duolingo? And you've got, I think it's Paco the Parrot who's delivering this. So, to confirm, it is our Gabby. It is our Gabby that was talking about that. But yeah, so, you know, come to our webinars. Make good use of us, guys. We've got cuppa and chats that are free. They're in person and online. We've got our Ask the Expert event that's coming up this week on the 23rd, so Thursday. That's hosted on our Sunshine Academy. The Sunshine Academy is by far, hands down, the best thing I think that we've ever created collectively as a team because we all input into it. So it's become this, oh my God, more than a font of knowledge. It's just incredible the amount of information that's stored on the Sunshine Academy. So I urge anyone, regardless of wherever you are in your send journey, sign up to that. And in fact, if you can see a QR code on our screen, that takes you straight to the Sunshine Academy. So you can just sign up there. But Jess, this has been really such a brilliant and insightful conversation.
It
And
really
I'm,
has. And I think it's definitely something that needed to be addressed
yes,
because there are incredible benefits to AI that can't be disputed. And I'm sure it's
absolutely.
going to grow and develop and become an incredible tool. But like we've been saying, it's not a solution and we need to be wary of it.
Absolutely. Very, very wary of it. And if anybody has any sort of questions, or don't ever struggle on your own. Don't struggle in silence. Just get in touch with us. You can send our page a message. You can get in touch with us via our website. You can come to our Sunshine Academy and ask us questions directly, or come to one of our webinars, Cuppa and Chat. I think there's a Cuppa and Chat online tomorrow night, actually. So by all means, if you need a link to something, just comment below. We will absolutely provide it. And if you need us, give us a shout. Jess, it's been an absolute dream.
It has,
And
it's been lovely.
yes, and I think we've got another Facebook Live and YouTube Live in 2 weeks' time with Kelly. And there's quite a few consultants going to be on that because they're going to be inspiring people with some success stories, which I think will be lovely.
Oh, it'll be so
So,
nice, won't it?
yeah, really, really nice. So if you need us, guys, get in touch. But until next time, we will say adios. I've been doing the Spanish course.
Tomorrow.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.